welcome to the program. What do you have on your take on this headline on Ruto path on to absolute power, and the Star as well as Ruto's MP numbers stretched to Uhuru and Raila? Star and the Standard.
Yeah, it is standard for any president to have absolute power and support from Parliament. And, you know, basically when you form a party, your intention is to govern or to rule the country. And basically you cannot do that with the minority. So there's nothing wrong with that. And, you know, if you go back to history, we used to have one-party rule. And in the absence of one-party rule, we have coalitions, we have, you know, all these kind of amalgamated whatever to have the power in Parliament and to pass the bills which the government feel can help and assist the common man to elevate poverty. There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. Osman,
others have done it. And it happened.
It has happened before because the way you put it, in each and every regime, there must be that club to have control in Parliament. Because legislation is quite key for the president. But coming to you, Osman, when you look at what is going to be the aftermath, and now it's going to be blocking and oversight, and now the hardest task now lies with the Speaker of the National Assembly.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think I should change from what the title that the Standard has put. That it is Ruto. How do we know if it is Ruto who has called these members of Parliament? Or are the members of Parliament finding that they don't have leadership and they made a decision to go and look where it is warm? You find, for example, as in the parties are only for election. After election, then there's no activity at all that is happening in the parties. So at times, I have been a member of Parliament, you find you don't get the leadership of your party. Like, for example, even after the election, there's no party that has come together to do a postmortem. Mostly the parties that have been defeated or are in opposition, they have not even come together to even do an audit of why were we defeated. So the MPs are already in the House. They are finding a lot of activities. They are finding their colleagues who are from the side of the government having a lot of activities, being called by their leadership, being talked to, being told how the manifesto is going to be implemented. So they find that rather than stay in the cold and they represent people, they want development for their constituencies. And in history, you know, in this country, development is attached to loyalty. So you find that they go where they think that they can find some piece of development for their people, because that will be a basis of their election come the next election.
That's the next question, because you know, we have got 3 arms of government, and each arm of government is independent. Whether you go to the other side, which is warmer, the way you're putting it, or otherwise, development will still have to trickle down to the common mwananchi. At this particular point, someone would argue that it was too early even for political parties to come together. A majority of them just come from an election. Others had to go back and, you know, cool off their feet for some time before they start having party organizations and party engagements. Do you think the president hijacked the whole process before political parties could settle? Starting with you, yes.
No, I think it is just a matter of strategy. Because, as you said, the 3 arms of the government, you know, we have the legislature, we have the executive, we have the judiciary. Basically, the executive cannot, you know, implement anything without going through the legislature. So they have to lobby the legislature to support their bills and all the plans. And at the same time, when the legislatures, you know, do their job, they need also the government or the executive to support their constituencies, because you now narrow down to your constituency. All right? To get the developments and all that. And that's the purpose of the representative of Parliament in the National Assembly and the Senate. So basically, it's all about lobbying each other and working with it. But it doesn't stop you from critiquing the government where they go wrong. There's nothing wrong in insisting on the government to go this way instead of that way. That is very much in order.
That will be a bit tricky.
Yeah.
That will be a bit tricky because you're still in the government and you want to oppose the same government you're serving.
You see, when it comes to oversight comes in so many other ways.
Exactly.
Let's start with the debt. You say we have a ceiling of the debt. There's no money in the treasury. How do you move?
Okay.
You have to legislate and increase the ceiling.
Yes.
Or rather increase the limit. You start from somewhere, and then now you start negotiating in terms of priorities. All right? Maybe the government would feel our priority is to start with education, health, and agriculture. And then as a legislature, you can debate and say, look, let's start with agriculture because we need food in our country. Let's start with water. We need dams to irrigate those chambers to bring food to our people. It goes like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you look at this...
and you cannot do that if you have friction between the executive and legislature. Yeah.
When you look at those two arms of government, you've been a member of parliament, and now when you have a president who has... Well, the two bodies are completely independent, but you have a president who has a direct control over the other arm. Then what is going to be the role of parliament? Because it means that anything the president says will pass.
You know, Victor, if this thing, the question you're asking is going to lead us to so many questions. In the first place, how independent is parliament? That is the question. How independent is parliament?
Yes.
Because we have history of parliament in this country. At the end of the day, it is not only this current administration. Even the previous administration, what was happening in parliament is that you have had people being given 10,000 shillings, 100,000 shillings for them to be lobbied to pass a bill, regardless of the party stand or the party ideology. But the other question, your question now leads me to, is there any loyalty of any member of parliament to the party that brought him into the house?
Exactly. That's
question,
what even raised part of last week.
Is because if you ask me today, I have been a chairman of a political party. I have been 5 years a political party's liaison committee secretary. I'm telling you today there's no party that is compliant to the law. The Political Parties Act 2012 as amended 2022, either as a coalition or parties. Why? If you ask me today, somebody comes at the last minute and gets a ticket to vie on that party. In Kenya here today, you have 100, above 100, or more than 100 parties.
Yes.
What is so special about Kenyan democracy? That you have 3 parties in UK, you have 3 parties in US, with over 300 million people. If you look at the Europeans, the UK, I mean Europe, in Italy, in France, all these countries, not more than 3 parties. But why is it that today we are having 100 parties that are registered? And also we're asking ourselves, are these parties really compliant to the law? They are being registered today, tomorrow, next day. And that should have been the work of the office of the Registrar of Political Parties. So at the end of the day, when somebody goes across and you just call them to write a letter to show cause why, and at the end of the day, the party that is writing show cause letter is not compliant to the law. Tell me which party today, including the ruling party, that has 24 offices across, offices across 24 counties as the Act, Political Parties Act. Tell me today, pick a phone, tell a party, call one of the parties, ask them, give me the telephone number of one of your parties. I call them and ask them independently which party they belong to. The data commission today, you have seen them asking Kenyans that if you are aggrieved that you are in a party that you don't belong to, write a letter. How will a woman who's herding a goat in Turkana, how would a person who is living in an informal settlement, who doesn't have a network, an internet network, how does somebody who is herding his camel in my county, Mandera, be able to know that they belong to a certain party. These parties have no membership. So you can't be wondering that the members of parliament are going to warmer places or where they think that something can be done.
Yes,
for their
then that's also the same question of party discipline. Then perhaps do you think that parliamentarians now, when it comes to parliament, Kenya is a democracy and we can have as many political parties as we want. You can even come, go register. Do you have members? Have you complied, quote unquote, with the party structures and requirements? Then you're registered. We've seen political parties being registered in some streets across here towards an election. But don't you think now it calls upon Parliament to streamline and come up with some rules that Kenya, yes, we are a democratic country, but hey, let's copy from our big boys out there, the way he said, France, Europe, Italy and US, UK, that at least we can have maximum at least 5 to spread that for everyone. And like having 150 political parties. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree what my colleague has just said about having so many parties which are almost becoming irrelevant. But at the same time, the constitution is constitution. It allows multi-party.
And it's open.
And it's open. We cannot put a cap on how many parties we should have. However, as I mentioned before about coalitions, about merger, about all the, you see like Jubilee.
Yes.
Those are 12 parties which merged.
Exactly.
To make Jubilee.
Right.
And one of them was my party, RSC party. I was the chair of RSC party. The wisdom in that is exactly the question you're asking me. Why don't we have one strong party to push the agenda of the Mwananchi? And we ended up having more seats in parliament than we had individually as, those small parties. So it makes sense in having few parties, as my colleague has said, but constitution is constitution.
But this is a trick. That's a trick being played by big political players. Have as many political parties, then we can have pre or post-election merger. Yes.
When the ORPP, the Register of Political Parties, the office, does what is entailed in that Political Parties Act, you will find all those parties will be registered within 90 days. If today they are asked, because you find, and you have seen in the press, that people say, this party belongs to so-and-so. This party belongs to so-and-so. How can a party belong to a person? And the law says the party belongs to members. You can be a leader of a party. So the question here is, you will never get democracy working in this country if you are not going to rectify the mess that is in political parties. Every election time, you find that today I'm a member of a certain political party. Next election, I'm a member of another party. You will find another new party coming tomorrow to be ruling this country. And at the end of the day, they can't follow the law. That is why you find that loyalty is not there. Go to the issue of coalitions. The act is very clear how a coalition is formed. You find before even the ink dried, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, you know what he said? That I didn't see even the agreement that was being signed. You saw another party leader saying the same thing. You have found yesterday or before yesterday in the news that the Democratic Party is complaining in the coalition of KK. So the issue is, are these things really, are these people following the act?
But it is now on the politicians. But as politicians, do they really learn?
No. When you're talking about independent offices, the 3 arms, and you are telling me now, it's not an issue. We must follow the law, whether you are who or you are who. The law is supreme.
Yes.
You must follow the law of the land. And if that law is not being exercised by the office that is supposed to exercise that law, then you will find this mess. What we are saying is, tell me today, if you go to the office of the Register of Political Parties and ask for the coalitions, the 2 major coalitions agreements, tell me that you are going to get it in an hour.
Okay. Let's take the last paper here, the Daily Nation, before we get to the discussion. On the front page of the Daily Nation is quite different. Auctioned, that is just one word, auctioned. That's the front page. of the Daily Nation. One word, auctioned. It says that COVID-19 pandemic wreaked unprecedented havoc on many individuals and businesses, and it continues to open up that more and more Kenyans are losing their valued assets, vehicles, pieces of land, houses, and household goods, as landlords, banks, SACCOs, Shylocks, and online lenders go after them for defaulting on loans and payments. The high cost of living, highlighted by the runaway inflation, is not making life any better for borrowers. And for many Kenyans, it is just a matter of when, not if, the auctioneers will come knocking. That is also the front page of the Daily Nation. Still down there, Ruto defends quoting rivals MP saying that he is on unity drive, something that we will be discussing here. Ruto defends quoting rival MP said that he is on unity drive. President William Ruto has insisted that his Kenya Kwanza administration is keen to incorporate everyone, including his competitors, in uniting the country, and rejected claims he is wrecking the opposition. Let me start with you again, Said. You know, when you look at this, my question is so simple. Do we have Jubilee now?
Yeah, Jubilee is there, and it's just going through a phase of reconstitution. It will remain Jubilee. UDA will remain UDA, but working together, there's nothing wrong with that. Look at history. We had Jomo Kenyatta, we had Oginga Odinga. At some point, they had to work together in Kano. Look at Israel. It has always been like that. The coalitions. One serves this term 3 years, another in 3 years. You cannot work against each other where people are suffering. People have to work together. But people have different ideologies. There's nothing wrong with that. But working together is not a crime.
This is the same party he campaigned against before election. And this is the same party now he's courting members to join his government.
Competition is competition. And we are past a general election. Now it is time to serve. You cannot be a president of a particular party. You can only be a president of all the parties because now you're the head of state. You're the commander-in-chief.
Yes.
All right? And the best thing any commander-in-chief would do is to put his people together and forge. However, in governing the country, you must have some strategy, which we call manifesto, which comes through the party. He has his manifesto to govern. You cannot go picking everybody's manifesto. He has his own manifesto, but he has to work with other people to push his agenda. And there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that?
Yes, absolutely not.
The same question, do we have Jubilee?
Jubilee is there. We formed Jubilee. In fact, I'm one of the founder leaders.
Yes, because you're a member of the advisory council.
I'm also the secretary to the advisory council, despite being a consultant in the last election for Jubilee. Victor, we formed Jubilee. We came together 11 parties and formed Jubilee, including the TNA of the former president and the URP of the current president. Jubilee was a party that was formed. We started the negotiation in 2016, September.
Just before election?
Just before election,
okay.
Before 2017. I was one of the people, including Honorable Kiraitu Murungi, who were called by the two principals to State House to ask us to form the party, and we folded our parties and formed Jubilee. And you know, when you talk about the headline that today the current president, His Excellency William Ruto, is wrecking the opposition or the other parties, I think that statement is not correct, because the issue, we should differentiate William Ruto as the president of the Republic of Kenya and William Ruto as the leader or political or party leader of the coalition or of the ruling party. As a head of state, as my colleague has said, he is the president of all animals and human beings in this country, including even wild animals, and is responsible when even one wild animal dies. That is the constitution he took the oath to uphold. For example, when we are crying that we are being wrecked, and at the end of the day, we are talking about that we don't recognize that William Samoei Ruto was elected as the president.
Okay.
No, that's not correct, Victor. William Samoei Ruto was elected and is currently, and myself from where I'm sitting, I recognize William Samoei Ruto as the president of the Republic of Kenya.
Okay.
So what we are saying is, when we are telling our members that today this is the right hand, this is the left hand, it is you who is sending away your members to go to the same place that I said where they can find some warmth.
Okay.
So, for example, we are talking about election that was rigged and that, and we have whistleblowers. I was in the Secretariat, and I am telling you as a fact, and anybody can come and tell me, and I've seen even the Secretary General of Jubilee going around with sufrias and doing all these things and hitting the sufrias. I'm telling you, and I'm telling the viewers, that we were defeated by William Samoei Ruto. We supported Honorable Raila ourselves, and we campaigned for him. We are supposed to go back and do our audit. How were we defeated? But we can't lie to Kenyans that today there is a whistleblower. Where were we? Today, ask that Kioni if he has a single paper that he can contradict what IBC has written. If you don't have a fact, and you tell me today a whistleblower, where are the millions of agents that were supposed to look after our votes?
Let's take a break.
So let us not
Let's take a break
lie.
on that.
Yeah.
Let's take a break on
not
that.
lie to the public.
That's an interesting debate that we need to have, because there is, some shake-up in the Jubilee Party in terms of leadership and moving forward. Is it going to be a way of survival for the Jubilee Party? Is it going to survive until the next general election? Let's talk about that when we come back after this particular break. A discussion that we've just started. Interesting, right? We'll be right back with more after this. All right, welcome back. Still have my guest in studio. So, gentlemen, let's talk about what is, what's at stake here. When you look at what is happening currently in the Jubilee Party, and the question is, the president campaigned against the Jubilee Party in the last election, and right now he is quoting members of the same party who he can campaign against. So, what is now the picture of all this? To weaken the party? To snatch away members of the political party from the party leader? Or what is the end game?
I think, like I had mentioned earlier, it's just a strategy to have support in Parliament when it comes to articulating the government's bills and what have you. You cannot run a government with minority. We've heard the late Kibaki. He tried to do that, and it was so difficult for him. As much as he had very good ideas, but he had minority in Parliament. So moving forward, the only strategy which is there is either a coalition or merger to increase your numbers in Parliament, to push your agenda. And there's nothing wrong with what H.E. William Samoei Ruto is doing today. He's doing exactly what I've just said. Yeah, and you cannot do that with a hostile party. You can only do it with a friendly party.
Yes.
And a friendly party has to, realign itself. If there's some elements who are saboteurs and all that, they're removed so that, things can go smoothly. And the MPs have been elected by the people. If they support the head of state, they're representing the people.
Why not?
Why not? So the party has to align and conform to that. And that's exactly what is happening in Jubilee.
We've seen some kind of, behaviors, quote unquote, behaviors of political parties. They'll run 5 years into an election, then towards an election, things will happen. Parties will either disintegrate, they'll say, we signed a or a post-election merger or an agreement with a political party, ruling political party. We've come all this far, and then now we've realized that, no, wait a minute, whatever we signed for is not exactly what we've been receiving. So at the end of the day, most of these political parties do disintegrate. Do you see this happening towards 2027? Because that is the end game.
You see, I'll give an example of the party which I belong to, Jubilee. When we started over in 2013, we were 4 parties. There was NAC, there was TNA, there was URP, and RC, which I was the chair. We were just a coalition. And way before that, as I mentioned during Kibaki's time, we had only MOUs. We never had any constitutional coalition, which you can deposit with the Register of Political Parties. So now with the coalition, it is a bit binding and somehow admissible in court in case one of you try to sabotage the other. Then moving on, 2016, as my colleague had given history, Jubilee decided to work with 12 parties, including the same 4 and others, to merge, not to a coalition, now to merge, to form one party. And the agreement was to overlap the 5 years term, so that you cannot come back and say, hey, I've changed my mind. So it overlapped with 2 years. So that means 5 years of the term of parliament, and then extra 2 years. So you cannot really come out. Like for now, I think it expires, next year, if I'm not wrong, the merger which we did. For people now to come out and say, okay, I want to go my way. But it's too late because you have to wait for the next election. So I don't know whether I've answered your question in terms of political parties surviving with each other and then collapsing after a certain period of time. The reason why people merge was to have at least 2 or 3 strong parties like the other countries have and move forward. But you know, politicians are politicians. They have their own independent minds. And the constitution is constitution. You're allowed to form a party after every whatever time you want. That's democracy. And that's the price we're paying for democracy.
That's the price we're paying for democracy. But at the end of the day, it is a common mwananchi, Honorable Osman, because the common mwananchi, the way you're putting it, that old lady in Mandera might not be aware of the political party's existence and structures, you know, and the guiding principles of political party or merger. They're not aware of such. But as the big political players, you being one of them, you are so much aware of the intricacies and some of this, you know, secrets of forming a political party, pre-post, or even some of the nitty-gritties that happen behind the scenes at night, during the day, call it. Where does this movement now leave the former president?
I think, let me just go back to the issue of the visit of our parliamentarians. You know, parliamentarians, members of parliament, are not robots. A party just gave them a ticket, but they have the people who elected them. And the people who elected them have a reason why they elected them, is to represent them in the August House. And they will definitely know what is good for their constituents and what is good for the country. So when you just want to use them as robots, because at the end of the day, I said that parties in Kenya don't belong to the members but belong to individuals, then at the end of the day, you find that the person, the individual, it gets aggrieved that the way he wanted, these people have not done, or they have not towed the line the way they wanted. But these people swore when they were sworn in the August House. Coming back to now, our party leader, my appeal to him, I supported His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta 3 times. In two times, 2013, 2017, and even 2022, when he supported somebody, I followed him and supported that person. But today, my advice or an appeal to him is that this party politics is not the level that he should bring himself to. He should just do like what Obama is doing. When it comes to election time, go around, support the president you want, support the party you want, and campaign for the wing that you want. But saying that today you want to be a party leader and you have been in office for 2 terms and we supported you 3 times, your supporters, today we say it is the time that Your Excellency, you bring another person to lead the party, but support the policies of the party from your retirement. That, I think, is where now we can be very comfortable ourselves as the people who followed him on those 3 terms.
Okay.
Secondly, you find today we are very uncomfortable where we are as members of Jubilee and the people who formed Jubilee. Why are we uncomfortable? These members of parliament who went to State House from where we're sitting, me and my friend here, and we might be speaking for other masses, the members of Jubilee outside there who don't have a voice, is that they did the right thing, and we will tell them to continue working with the head of state as head of state. Is the head of state, and it is that today the allegiance to the head of state is very clear.
Okay, let me be the devil's advocate in this situation. Allow me to. If the Jubilee party never had, a strong membership and leadership, don't you think that it would have been quite okay for any political party to go and have a PG somewhere and say, now this is what's happening. The former president is now on retirement and we need to form leadership of this party. Don't you think that's exactly what you ought to have done as Jubilee?
That is exactly what we should have done. And
why
that is exactly why we couldn't do it. We were waiting for, because legally there's somebody written there is the party leader. And the party leader is the person who is supposed to call for that meeting. Yeah?
Yes.
Through the Secretariat. So what I'm telling you, Victor, is that there's a vacuum. That vacuum is what is making most of the leadership who have been elected.
Yeah, because there's been some rumors that the former president was almost quitting as the chair.
It's a vacuum. I don't want to go into details, and Kenyans know that there was a vacuum from the start. Even the day we were there, even the day during the election, there was a vacuum. But I don't want to go that line.
Okay, all right.
But the other thing also is that at the end today, where we are finding ourselves as members of Jubilee, we're very uncomfortable, is the issue. You are talking about the country, the companies being auctioned. After all, Kenya is not an island. Anybody knows today the economic status.
Yeah, you can run somewhere for survival.
Yes, yeah, and that's one. But also, you must know that what is facing Kenya today economically is facing most of the countries. You have seen in the news what is happening in France yesterday.
Yes.
People demonstrating, burning cars. It's not exceptional to Kenya.
Okay.
So the issue now that we are talking about a stolen election, that we want to go and storm State House after going for these rallies, the statements that are being made in rallies, that is a legitimate government, where we are sitting as the leaders of Jubilee. I will come to that matter of the issue of campaigns, because people, an opposition will have to be active either way, from one quarter, and the government also run from the other quarter. But based on what he's saying, the history of formation of Jubilee, the pre-coalition parties, the pact, the membership, and what have you. Up to this particular point, can we simply say that Jubilee will cease to exist moving forward?
If I may, I don't think so. As my colleague has just mentioned here, we have a party leader. And
so who is the party leader currently?
Of Jubilee?
Of Jubilee, yes.
Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta.
Was he consulted before members went to State House?
No, I'm coming to that.
Okay.
I'm coming to that. You see, it becomes a little bit complicated when you're a former head of state. A head of state is not just a chairman of a party or a political party leader. You are the head of state of the whole country. You go into retirement by virtue of the Constitution. The most honorable thing is to do exactly that. Then your caliber is at that level. You're a statesman.
Yes.
Of Africa and the whole world. That's where he belongs. But the moment you come to politics, as they say, politics is dirty. even a small person in the street will start insulting your party and you in person.
Yes.
I don't think he belongs there. All right? Now, as my colleague had mentioned earlier, after he goes into retirement, leave the party to us. We'll rearrange it, we'll organize it, and we'll move it on like any other party. And the issue of the party dying will not be there. Because they are active members, they are active leaders who still want to move on with that party. And I ask this question, why do people form a party?
Why do people form a party? Exactly. That's the same question you said.
I'll tell you.
Yes.
When you form a party, as per the Registrar of Political Parties, it is assumed you're going to form the next government. So even when you give your party list, you assume you're going to get all the members of a parliament in the August House. Then it goes pro rata with what you've won in the election, correct? So you cannot go form a party to be an opposition. Nobody prepares to be an opposition.
Right.
You prepare to lead. That's why we used to have, with the previous constitution, we used to have a shadow cabinet with the opposition. But now the constitution changed. We don't have an opposition leader. In that case, we don't have those shadow cabinets and all this. That way, when you have a shadow cabinet with the opposition, there'll be check and balance one-on-one.
Paint for me a picture what 2027 will look like. Okay, too soon to talk about 2027, but assume that we are almost 2027, 2-3 months from election. Paint for me a picture how it would look like.
It's very simple. If this constitution goes through, what they want to do with the opposition in parliament, because right now we don't have opposition in parliament, opposition leader. If it goes through, it will realign itself. The opposition would have a proper cabinet, a shadow cabinet, to do check and balance. And I think the head of state has said many times, we need a strong opposition. We want people to check us. Because even you as a human being, you can make a mistake and somebody can correct you in a positive way. It's very healthy and democratic. But when everybody is just going the same direction you're going, you can never learn your mistakes.
Twice.
So I support His Excellency William Samoei Ruto in his quest to have a strong opposition in parliament. And it should be constituted in the...
All right, 2027, almost, Mheshimiwa, almost an election, assume it's just across the other hill. How would it look like?
I have mentioned earlier and said that if we are not going to get the Office of Registrar of Political Parties to follow the law to the letter and crack a whip for the political parties to be able to be compliant to the law, then the mess will be the same. There's nothing that will change.
On the formation of political parties?
On the coalitions, on the formation of political parties, on the activities of the political parties, because at the end of the day, when did these parties, if you have ever had, done a very transparent election, that today you can say somebody down there in Taita Taveta has casted a vote for the party that he or she has elected somebody at the branch level.
Yes.
When have you heard that? When have you heard that there was a national election electing officials? Why should be officials of political parties acting forever? Why are they acting? And there's a law that says you must do elections within a certain period.
You're a member and a secretary of a party. You should be asking me, asking me that question.
No. For me, I am not in that office now, mandated by law. If I would have been the office on that the registrar of political parties, today you could have seen sanity in the political arena of this country. So when you're talking about 2027, it is the same thing. Why don't we just abolish the parties and say, I want to elect Victor, I want to elect Said, and then we go to polls?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, I want us to move into another thing. This issue of political parties will come, and we've seen it over and over again. I believe come 2027, we'll be here once again to talk about the mess in political parties. A lot of them will come up and they'll seek for realignments and coalitions and mergers that will happen. When you look at Honorable Raila Odinga going around the country and terming it's called meet the people, consultative meetings with people, so far it has not been chaotic as people would perceive it to be. They go to a rally, articulate the issues and go back. An active opposition perhaps in a structured way might not be the way somebody would have seen it or wanted it to be. But do you think this is the right way to go? The opposition?
Going to riots?
Exactly. Not riot per se, but having these meetings across the country.
No, it's very much in order for them to, articulate or ventilate through rallies and all this. But what I'm against is destroying of people's properties, raising the emotions of the youth who are jobless. Because as my colleague has said, this issue of economy is affecting everybody worldwide. So you can imagine a youth who is idle and you come and raise his emotions. The guy can do anything which is unthinkable because he has nothing to lose. All right? But if it is just about, picketing and expressing themselves, there's nothing wrong with that. You cannot gag, you cannot gag people from talking.
But
destroying people's properties?
Yes. And Honorable Raila Odinga has been talking about lost election, the whistleblower. There was a list, with varying figures. 4 million, 5 million, 8 million. At what particular point do you think now people will come to realize that, hey, this is the truth and this is a lie?
To be honest, with the constitution which you have today, if you're not satisfied with the results of IBC, the next place you go is Supreme Court. After the Supreme Court, the game is over. You can ventilate, you can sit with your family and mourn forever, but life has to go on. And let me tell you something. If you feel Mwananchi is being oppressed, or maybe there's something that you need change on, as a member of parliament, put a bill. Let it be debated.
Yes.
Because when it comes to economy, it affects even the ruling party. But have you seen those bills? I've never seen any. But people are very good in rallies, dancing and saying so many things. But the best place to argue your case, the best place to improvise the livelihood of Mwananchi is parliament. Because you and I are not in parliament. They are in parliament. We've mandated them to do exactly that. But the same people are coming to dance in the rally. But if you look at the Hansard, my colleague here would agree with me. Some of them have never even spoken for 5 years, but they're very good speakers in rallies. So to make sense and to add value to Mwananchi's life, the best way is to go through parliament, oppose what you feel is not right, propose what you think should be done, and life goes on. And people listen to, because Hansard doesn't lie. Even if you want to go to Hansard today, you'll see even what Shikuku said many years ago.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, dancing on the rally and threatening and insulting, well, you will entertain. But after that, have you made an impact? I don't think so.
Kenyans consume politics almost on a daily basis, and when you go to a political rally, somebody will come just because they've never seen Honorable Osman talk. Some will say, "Oh, this is how he looks like." Okay, let's listen to him for the first time. But when you look at the opposition, Kenyans consume politics, as I've said. When you go to parliament, two things.
I want to add on that.
Yes.
What he said.
Yes.
Victor, you cannot plant maize and wait to harvest beans.
It has to be maize.
It has to be maize. These rallies, the question is, we're asking ourselves, what is the end result? When you say that we are going to have a 1 million march after going around the country and going to a state house to remove the current sitting president of the Republic of Kenya. Kenyans are hungry. There's no food. They can't pay school fees. You have seen the issue of auctioning in that Nation headline. It is just a time bomb. And if you now add fuel to that time bomb, then you will expect. We are Kenyans. And before even politics, this is our motherland. Myself, as Hassan today, at my age, if I die tomorrow, I want to be buried in this country, wherever I die. But what I'm saying is, today I totally do not agree with these rallies. As Azimio, we have not even come back and answered the people who elected or gave us votes. The millions of votes we got, we have not answered them why we lost. And nobody has even called us to ask us. We are going for rallies. even as Jubilee. There was no consultation. That do we go to rallies? Forget about that guy, that Kioni. Kioni, I was in the same party with him, UDF. He didn't even vote for Musalia Mudavadi in 2013 in his polling station in Nyandarua. So today he has no local standard even to tell anybody. And he didn't even bring a party to form Jubilee at the end of the day. And he's standing there talking about that we lost. I was a player. I was a consultant in the last election. So these lies that are being told Kenyans, anybody can come and challenge me where they want with facts. That why do we rely on whistleblowers while we were there and we know? You tell Kenyans that there was a whistleblower. We are shaming even the party. Even that Azimio coalition is losing members every day because of the lies we are telling Kenyans.
Yes.
And us, some of us, we kept quiet for all this time. We didn't want to come out to say, but this is an opportunity for us to come out and say, we appeal to Honorable Raila, let us use another way of picketing and opposing the current regime, rather than waking up Kenyans and telling them, go and throw eggs and do this or what. At the end of the day, it will come a time when we are unable to control those youths.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm sure we are running out of time, but I'm going to give you 1 minute each. Let's talk about this. You know, it affects almost everyone. On the front page of the Daily Nation, auctioned. Just one word. I think this is the shortest headline I've seen in a very long time in my career. Auctioned. And this speaks volume, because when you look at it, a majority of Kenyans are affected. You know, SACCOs, banks, and all of you. Let me start with you. Starting with this headline. It itself is self-explanatory.
A bank business is to lend money. That's where they make the money. A bank is not supposed to lend you money to auction you. All right? Let's talk in business term. If you give me a loan and I do not repay in good time, I should sit down with you and negotiate and see how we can reorganize the payment period. If the 5-year or 10-year was not enough, why can't I stretch it to 20 years so that you pay maybe lower than what you were paying before? But if I auction you, I'm not helping you. I'm killing you. How do you kill a cow which is giving you milk? What you need to do, get some hay and increase the volume of the milk. I rest my case.
Exactly. When you look at this one and parliamentarians, the government has not yet settled. We don't have a budget yet for, you know, it's about now restructuring the parliament, resuming tomorrow. And when you see this one, this says a lot about how Kenyans are now struggling to make ends meet, Mheshimiwa.
You know, as my colleague has said, who controls the banks? That work is the work of current members of parliament. Have you ever had a bank losing that today or at the end of their financial year that they have made a loss? Have you ever had? How do you make, during COVID time, billions of shillings profit? Where are you getting that money from? And the Kenyans were locked in their houses.
Yes.
This is total rip-off. Total rip-off. And that is why, as a Muslim myself, I say, I am not going for those interest loans, and I've never gone for one. I will never go for those interest loans. But I'm a Kenyan. What affects Kenyans also affects me. It is the work of members of parliament to look into the issue, the Banking Act, and see, are these people playing within the law, or they're ripping off 1 inch?
Absolutely.
You pay for your house mortgage for 20 years. It remains 1 year for you to finish paying. Your house is being auctioned because of that last 1 year that you are unable to pay because of what is going on.
Yes, gentlemen, is there hope for this country at the end of the day? Because people are now struggling at the end of the day. Let me start with you as your final remarks. Is there hope for this
country? There's a lot of hope for our country. And it is not upon only the president of this country. It is upon all of us to make this country today. We have droughts. Animals are dying. We have drought. The last time, when was the last time it rained in Nairobi? It is coming. And even the Tuesday prayer, we are going there. We'll go. We'll pray. We are not invited before, but as Muslims now, we have been invited. I'm a Muslim and I'll go on Tuesday to pray. We have also been praying before on our own. But we will pray even that day with other Kenyans for that got to look on our side, and we have rain. This country is the best country that today you can get in this world, and we cannot change it for any other country. So we are there to help the current administration. Where they go wrong, the way my brother said, we will say. Where they are right, we should not oppose just because of the sake of opposing.
Absolutely. Is there hope?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if you don't believe in God, you give up. But I believe in God as a Muslim, and I know there is hope. But when we talk about a country, we talk about governance. And the hope comes in if there's at least some sensible minds who will put the problems ahead and priorities and put their personal interests behind. Then we can move on and at least articulate on issues which affects the Mwananchi.
Absolutely.
Especially agriculture. And we cannot do that if we are all fighting each other. So hope is there, but we need to strategize and see how we can jump all these hurdles which are global. It's not here only. So hope is there.
Hope is there.
But we need to have sober mind, not boiling heads and, you know. Yeah, but hope is there.
Hope is there. Yeah. You know, that's the best place to finish, because at the end of the day, we can talk all manner of politics, but if there is no hope, then there's nothing left for us. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming. You know, one fun thing about my career is that I get first-hand information. I've been quite privileged to have Said Ali, who is a Jubilee Advisory Council member, as well as Honorable Hassan Osman, Senior Director and Outreach and Strategy, Jubilee Party Secretariat. They have given me first-hand information that I wanted to hear about Jubilee Party. Is there hope for this nation? Well, politics aside, there is hope. Now, today is World Radio Day. World Radio Day. That's huge. My career started in radio, and I know the power of radio as it is. And it stands, my colleague Doreen said that it remains one of the biggest medium of information being consumed globally, including Mandera, all right? Including Mandera.
Yes.
So radio plays a very powerful tool. We'll be crossing over to different radio stations here at KBC, the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, just to talk to our radio presenters there to tell us what they're feeling today. We celebrate them. Today is their day, yes. And even you, as our listener and our viewer, what is your take? We'll be crossing over to Mary Daraja, who is the program's controller, radio station, and as well as our brothers and sisters in different radio stations here at the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. Today is World Radio Day. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming on the show. And you as a viewer, thank you for your valued company.
Thank you.
Good morning.